And they say multiple streams of revenue coming in is absolutely what you should be doing. You should never be focusing on just one stream of revenue coming in. Hey, sweet mama. Welcome back to another episode of Mama Mindset. I'm your host and creator, Amy Cawthron. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you're watching this on YouTube, you'll notice that I am in a comfy sweatshirt. You won't notice that I'm also in my comfy sweatpants, and I am footloose and fancy free, no makeup. I had an incredibly busy, long day today. And I got in the shower to, get ready for this recording. And I just thought, why would I put a bunch of makeup on for all my sweet mama friends who don't care if I'm wearing a bunch of makeup, and just to turn around and have to take it all off again right before bed because it is getting a little bit late here. So, but I really want to address some of these questions you guys sent in. And I just wanted to be my authentic self while I address these. And I just wanted to be comfy and cozy. So thank you for joining me today. We're going to go through as many of these as I can, but I'm going to be really honest. I had several of them come in, which I absolutely love. And if I don't answer one of your questions, if you had one, I will absolutely answer it and address it at a later time. But I don't want this podcast episode to get too long tonight. So I'm just going to dive on in. And I'm going to keep these anonymous just because I haven't asked everybody permission if I can share who the questions came from. But if at a later time, you send a question in and you want me to give you a shout out, I absolutely would love to do that. I just haven't asked anybody that sent these questions if I could say who they came from. So we're just going to dive on in tonight. So the first question that came through says, thoughts on being a stay-at-home mom when the kids are in school? And I think this is a great question, an absolutely great question because, well, all of these questions are fantastic, by the way, which is why I am going to try and keep this as short as I can. But before we decided to homeschool, it was absolutely still something that I was going to do. Even if the kids were all in public school, being a full-time mom was still something that Brad and I had both discussed about me doing, continuing that role for our family. And I actually believe, I don't want to say it's more important for you to be home, but I think there is absolutely a place for you to still support your family, even if your kids are in school. Because when Gracie was in school, which was still even just kindergarten, I mean, there were cupcakes that I needed to bake. There were parties that people were planning, and there were all of these volunteer opportunities that we were kind of expected as parents to show up for. And I did want to be involved in her education as best as I can and be hands-on. And I couldn't be hands-on with her education if I was working. I didn't feel like. Now, if parents feel differently, that's totally your opinion. However, for us, the quality of education and the amount of involvement that we wanted to have in our children's education, there was not a way that we would have been able to do that if I was working full-time or even really part-time. So I think being a stay-at-home mom while your kid's in school is incredibly important. It allows you to support them in their extracurricular activities. It allows you to prepare healthy meals without being rushed. It gives a softer, more gentle family dynamic when they come home from school and they have that letdown from school, especially if they're really young. And there are so many benefits in you still fulfilling that role as the parent that's at home to support them emotionally. You're there when they need to work on their homework. You can get them a healthy afternoon snack. You can be there, not rushed in the morning, to get them a decent breakfast. And then during the day, because I think maybe some people would be wondering, some moms might be wondering, well, what should I do during the day? Or should I be working? I don't want people thinking that I'm not doing anything, but there are going to be so many projects that you still need to do around the house that you're going to end up thinking, how did I ever do this when I had X number of children at home? How did I ever get all of this done? You will stay plenty busy, still fulfilling the needs of your household. And this does give you a little bit of space and a beautiful opportunity to maybe pursue some of the things that you're interested in that you felt like you couldn't do when the kids were younger. Maybe this gives you more of an opportunity to do hands-on gardening or getting back to some photography that you were interested in before, or some of the other activities that you loved before you had children, or interests that you've grown into wanting to pursue since you've had children, but maybe haven't had the space or the opportunity to do so. So I celebrate it. I think it's amazing. I am so tired of the expectation of moms that are full-time moms when the kids are young for you to give up that role to turn around and get a full-time job. I think that's ridiculous. I think kids need your support, and they need the support of a parent at home, even if they're in school. And I know we talk a lot about, homeschooling on the podcast, and I don't want it to be structured directly towards homeschooling. I don't want anybody ever to feel like they're pressured to do that. That's just because that's what I do, or maybe some other moms do. But there are plenty of stay-at-home moms out there whose children are in school. And I think more of that is needed, and more of that needs to be celebrated. There's plenty to do. There's plenty of room for you to still support your family in that role. I say that lightly, I guess, almost more so when they're in school. They need that emotional support, that emotional foundation of home to return to, and a parent who's fully prepared to support their children when they come home. And I know I'm not trying to speak negatively about working parents by any means, but I do know that feeling of, you get off work, you have to go home, make dinner, and still trying to, do the homework and do the things. I don't know from personal experience the homework side, but I know the feeling of getting off work, needing to rush home, support my baby, and still make dinner, to turn around, like clean up the house, do a little laundry, turn around and do it all the next day. Then you end up living for the weekend. It's a sense of living for the weekend, instead of this atmosphere of, I am here to still support my family and support my children when they come home. I am available to take them to the extracurricular activities if needed, which then supports my spouse in him, being able to fully work on his job. So, there's so many pros of being and continuing that role as a full-time mom while your kid's in school. So I hope that answered your question. I'm only surmising that you're maybe feeling a little bit of pressure to get a part-time job, to get a full-time job once your kids go back to school. Maybe that's coming from people asking like, oh, I've had this comment so many times. Oh, you can volunteer this because it looks really good on your resume when your kids go back to school and you want to start working again. Nobody said I'm going to start working again just because my children are in school. So maybe you're getting some pressures or, side remarks or something like that, that's making you feel like maybe I shouldn't be a stay-at-home mom when the kids go back to school. Do I need to be building my resume? Do I need to be looking at career options or jobs? Maybe this is just something that you want to bring up to your spouse because you haven't had that conversation either. But Brad and I did have that conversation, and we were 100% on the same page that there is so much benefit, and there was still so much work to do in supporting the kids and supporting him and taking care of the house as a stay-at-home mom, even when the kids are out of the house and going to school. So I hope that answered your question. If you need me to clarify anything, please don't hesitate to reach out to me on that a little bit more. And we can talk about that in other episodes too. So moving into the next question, this is just a really fun one. So I'll just kind of break up a heavy topic with just a fun one. But the question is, are you into any shows right now? And I think I've mentioned this in other podcasts, but I love the show New Girl. It's on Netflix and I've watched the entire season and I'm in the second round of watching all of the seasons. I shouldn't say I watched the entire season. I watched the whole series. I watched all of the seasons and I'm working my way back through it again. And I want to talk about this a little bit because I have a really hard time right now with shows and even certain books and separating the emotions that those shows and movies make me feel, mostly shows. And I think it's because they're so constant. And so separating myself and my emotions and my thoughts from some of those shows is really difficult for me right now. I was watching a couple of other shows and it was, but there was so much conversation behind divorce or I don't do good with murder mysteries anymore now that I've become a mother. I used to watch murder mysteries, CSI, all that stuff. I used to love that stuff, but it creates a lot of anxiety for me and fear. And I can't absorb those types of shows right now. So anyways, New Girl for me is funny. It's easy. It's simple. It's mostly clean humor and I love it. I laugh every single time and it's easy. It's, an easy 30-minute thing I can put on and go to sleep or whatever. It's kind of a little bit of a running joke in the house right now with Brad and I, because it's like, oh, you had a little bit of time tonight. Let me guess what you did. You went to bed and you watched New Girl and you fell asleep. And it's absolutely true. I get all of my stuff done. I've had all my things done during the day. And that is a little bit of my wind down time. My quiet time is watching just New Girl. Brad and I have watched Yellowstone a little bit and we do love Yellowstone, but the episodes are a little too long for us to make it through sometimes. So we have not consistently watched that, but we were watching it a little bit. But again, those types of shows are really emotionally heavy for me. And that's probably just me. I'm not saying that anybody has to fall in line with what I'm doing, but that's what I'm watching and that's what I'm doing based on what's going on in my life right now. So, which was a fun question. I love the fun questions, the easy ones. So thank you for that. Here is a really great question I do want to answer for sure tonight, especially as I think a lot of you moms are working on the MMR challenge, the Mama Mindset Reset Challenge. And the question is, how do you and Brad balance giving each other time when both are doing a challenge? And I'm just going to start off by saying it's difficult. It is tough. The other thing that I want to say about that is when we are doing a challenge, we have typically talked about it ahead of time. Hey, I'm really interested in doing this, or we really want to do this together. I don't know if we've ever really started a challenge at the same time. So, but we do give each other a little bit of a heads up that this is what we're going to be doing. Now, one thing that I will say about this is when you start a challenge or you start pursuing anything different than what you would consider like your normal routine, you're saying yes to this new thing. You're saying yes to the challenge. You're saying yes to this new thing you're going to try, which means you have to say no to something else. So you really have to say, this challenge is 30 days. This challenge is 60 days. For the next 30 days or 60 days, there are things that I'm going to say no to. There are things that I'm going to have to cut back on. So Brad and I have had to do that. We just know we need to simplify things. We may not be able to say yes to certain outings. But the point of a lot of these challenges is to still live your normal day-to-day life and then challenge yourself to add in some of these extra things or pursue. I don't really want to say add because like I said, you have to take that away, but take things away, but to pursue something separate, something different. But the challenge in that is to pivot and really figure out where your priorities are. So how Brad and I have done that, I'll just bring it back to how Brad and I do it, is we have to communicate every day where we are in our day and where we are in our challenge. The other aspect of that is we do as much as we can in the mornings before the kids wake up. So that means waking up at 4:45 or 5 a.m., which means we go to bed earlier. If somebody has, so we try and get everything or as much. It's really tough to do some of that, to do all of it in the morning, but we do as much as we can in the mornings before the kids are awake and before the rest of the day even has an opportunity to influence us or to take space from us, to take that time from us. And then we have to just make it a priority to get those things done independently on our own, in our own time. And at the end of the day, if it's after dinner or really usually right if Brad comes home, right when he comes home, I'll say, I have XYZ to do tonight. And he says, I have ABC to do tonight, or I just have one thing, or I got all my stuff done. And then we say, okay, awesome. Let's tackle this. I'll put the kids to bed. You go hop on the spin bike, or let's work on the dishes together to get it done super fast. And then I'll put one kid to bed while you put the other two to bed. And then I'll do yoga, or I'll sit down and read, or instead of watching TV tonight, I need to get my reading done. How is your water doing? So really it comes back to saying no to things because you're saying yes to something else. It comes back to communicating, constant communication and check-ins with each other in where you're at in the day. And it comes back to getting up early and getting as many things done before the kids get up as you possibly can. Now, as a stay-at-home mom, a lot of the challenges, a lot of the aspects of the challenges you can actually do, and I'm going to get some flack probably for saying this, you can actually do easier than they can in some ways because they are obligated to be at their job, where your job at home, you can have the kids involved in a workout if that's one of the challenges that you're doing, or an aspect of the challenge. I'm just kind of using the Mama Mindset Reset Challenge as an example because that's what everybody should be doing right now. No, that's what probably some of you are thinking about doing or working towards. But I just really think that it's easier for you to do some of these things with the kids at home. You can put on a workout video on YouTube. You can drink your water throughout the day, maybe a little easier because the bathroom's just, right down the hall. So in some ways, I feel like we can get some of the stuff done during the day, which saves space for them to do one extra workout at night. So for us specifically, that was always my goal when I was doing, 2 workouts a day, is I would have to get one done in the morning. And then my outside workout, I would take the kids on a walk with me and we would get that done. So then all of the other little things or smaller things I could just do throughout the day. And then that way, when Brad came home, I knew he got up early and he had done his workout. And then in the evenings, that was the only thing he needed to do was get a workout in. Or sometimes on his lunch break, he would make that a priority to get a walk in. And that was awesome. So then he could come home. We didn't have anything to do, but that wasn't always an option. So we would just communicate like, hey, I still have a walk, or I still have an outside workout, or I still have this I need to do. So I would just say, nope, I got mine done during the day. That's great. I'll work on this while you go do that. And really knowing that that was important to him, because I'm in my mind, I know what you're thinking. You're probably thinking like, but I've been with the kids all day. It's his turn to put them to bed. I don't want to have to do this by myself. But we have to understand that by them doing these things, by taking on these challenges, it makes them a better person. It makes them a better husband. And it's really something that I, most of the time, didn't mind doing. You can talk about like, well, what if I'm sick, or what if this happens, or whatever. Like those are all other variables that I feel like you're fully capable and competent in tackling on a as needed basis. But generally speaking, if you can get more of your stuff done during the day and they have one thing that they need to do at night, then that's great. Now, I fully understand if in the evenings they've let everything wait till the very last minute and now you're picking up the slack because of that. That is frustrating. I absolutely understand that, which is why we've always been really good about making it a priority to do as much as we can first thing in the morning when the kids aren't awake or up and around. And if it does become a problem or if it is an issue, just communicate that. That would be my suggestion, is to just communicate that, to talk about it, and to have a little bit of a plan ahead of time. I'm going to get up in the morning. You're going to get up in the morning. I'm going to do as much as I can during the day to the best of my ability. And then that gives you time in the evenings to work on this. And it's not always going to be perfect. So it's a really, really great exercise in communication and building your relationship to work on some of these things together and figure out how to pivot. Okay, we both have something to do. So how am I going to help you while you help me and create more of a win-win situation, not feeling like it's any kind of a compromise? Let's make this more win-win instead of compromising. And a lot of that, the key component to that comes back to communication. So I hope this helped you with, if you and your husband are starting a challenge together, I hope this helped, but please feel free to reach out and ask me. I can go into more details of how this worked. But like I said, check-ins, communication, getting as much done on your own time and in the mornings and not leaving it all last minute. And that goes back to, I just want to add one more thing to that. That goes back to, a lot of the point of these challenges is self-reliance and independence and growing your confidence in yourself. And so if you're constantly relying on your spouse to pick up the slack and solve these problems for you, I don't feel like you're really learning anything from it. So you have to figure out how to take care of your own shit so that somebody else isn't taking care of it for you. Like, you still have the obligations of being a mother or a father. You still have all of those same obligations, and you can't put those by the wayside completely and 100% just because you're doing a challenge. So, husbands can't think, oh, well, I'm doing a challenge, so I don't have to help with dinner. I'm not going to help with dishes because I have all this stuff to do. Like, no, that's not how it works. You get up in the morning, you get your stuff done to the best of your ability, and then you maybe choose one thing in the evening that you still need to do. And maybe that's just your reading, or, drinking your water or something. So finishing up your water. But the rest of it really needs to be done to the best of your ability without impacting the kids. So if that means you help with dinner, help with dishes, help get the kids down, and then you go outside and do an outside workout, or then you go, lift weights or do whatever the last component is, you do it when the kids are in bed. I want to really make sure that I make that very clear. A lot of the times when we do these challenges, if we don't get it done before, like, Brad comes home from work, then we wait till the kids are in bed. And then we split up our time. One person's at the house doing something, for example, just at our house, one person will hop on the spin bike, so we're still around the kids, and one person will go for an outside walk. So we just have to split it up that way also. But you cannot cut in to that family time, which is why it is so important to remember, if you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else. So if your workout happens at night after the kids are in bed, that means you're saying no to nighttime TV. And that means you're saying no to sitting down and just relaxing, because you still have to get that done. And then you need to go to bed so you can get up the next morning to do it again and try and get your workout in and reset the next day so you're not staying up so late. So there's all these variables, but the thing is you just have to figure it out. You just have to figure it out together through communication. And you cannot give up being a mother. You cannot give up being a father because of the aspect of being on a challenge. So Hey, sweet mama, I just wanted to remind you about an incredible opportunity to take these conversations one step further, to find like-minded women who want to dive deeper and pursue the things that they're interested in order to best raise our future generation. And that is with my Mama Mindset Tribe Facebook group. You can find the link in the show notes below. If you haven't already joined the group, I highly encourage you to do so. This is a free resource where you can ask questions, seek guidance, look for help, celebrate the wins of the mindset shifts that you've had, the 1% changes that you had in up-leveling your life, big things, little things, all of it. I want to celebrate all of it. I want to share all of it. We're going to ask some big questions and some participation opportunities. So if you haven't already done so, please head on over. The link is in the show notes below and join the Mama Mindset Tribe on Facebook. I look forward to having you join our tribe. Moving on to the next question. I love this question, and I'm going to answer it in the way, well, I'll address what the question is first. How long did it take for you to be okay with no longer earning your own paycheck? This mom says that it's been 2 years. She's 2 years in, and she's still struggling with that. And for me, because this is the only experience that I have to go off of is my own, I have almost always had a little bit of income coming in. Almost always. I've had pockets of time where I'm not working much or anything, but when I say work, I've always tried to do it from home, or I've cleaned. So Brad's taken the girls and I do it at night or on the weekends. I cleaned the family shop. And so honestly, I can't say that I've ever gone long periods of time without having a little bit of an income coming in, even if it was just to supplement activities for the kids. And it is tough. I just want to say that is tough, especially if you are a career-oriented woman, or if you've worked. I've worked since I was like 12, 13 years old. My whole life I worked. When in college, I was working 3 jobs at once while taking full-time credits and living on my own. So to go from that shift to always having my own money to relying 100% on Brad definitely was a transition. Now, I don't have to ask him for money. We transitioned everything into a joint checking account, so I never have to ask him permission for money. So I don't know all of the variables obviously going on in your household and how that works, but we don't look at it like I don't have a job. We look at it from the perspective of we are just a single income household. We only have one income coming in. And that doesn't mean that it's Brad's income entirely. He is the one working that generates the revenue or the income. Absolutely. But I am providing a source of income. It's just not monetary. We're just not getting a paycheck. And that is saving us a bunch of money in childcare costs, in grocery budget, in all of these other ways, like housekeeping and things like that. So we've never really looked at it like Brad is the only one that makes money. We've just looked at it like a whole household. As a household, this is our income. And it is really tough when they're like, well, what's your husband's income? And it's like, well, it's our household income. This is what we're doing together, because he's able to really, develop his career and work and focus on work to support the family because of what I'm doing here at home. But what I want to say in specifically address your question is that if you're still really feeling like you're missing something and you want to be earning a little bit of money, then by all means do that. Figure out a way to make a little bit of cash, figure out a way to make a little bit of money. And maybe that's your coffee money or your extra money or supplementary income for kids' activities, because Lord knows they're expensive. I would say do that. Maybe you take a cleaning job on the weekends just to, get out of the house and do something, or, whatever, whatever that entails. I was fortunate enough to be able to do some bookkeeping for my mom for her business. So I was able to just go to like her home office, or I was able to do it here at the house. And then that was no longer a good fit for us. And so I stepped away from it. But there are options out there, and there's things you can try, and there's things you can do. And honestly, there are very, very few stay-at-home moms that I know that don't have any kind of an income coming in some capacity, whether they're selling baked goods, whether they're, involved in a MLM, whether they're, doing transcription work, whether they're doing something. There are very few stay-at-home moms that are not generating money on their own independently in some way. So if you're feeling the pull to want to make a little bit of money and have some kind of an income coming in for yourself or for your family, then by all means do that. Explore some options for yourself. There's a lot of options out there. Obviously working full-time or doing something full-time isn't possible, but even if it's like something that's 6 hours a week, that gets you a little bit of spending money. That gets you doing something that gets your brain working. Maybe it gets your body working, especially if you're cleaning. Oh man, that was a big job for me. But I think that that's great. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I am to the point now that we've been doing it long enough, but we're 7 years into me being a stay-at-home mom, that I don't look at it like I'm not bringing in any money or I'm not, supporting Brad, but, something that we've done together too. And I don't see a paycheck from this, but I think you guys have heard me talk about this before. We started an Airbnb on our property. We have 7.5 acres here, which isn't a lot, but it's perfect for us. And we started a glamping experience. We set up a wall tent and it's beautiful. And that's my job. When we have it open is I clean and take care of that and check guests in, greet guests. And that is what I do. And do I see a paycheck from that? No, but it does make me feel like I'm bringing in something to the household and that I'm helping with. So, now we went from a single income to now we have another source of revenue coming in. They always say like multiple streams of revenue. There's nothing wrong with that. Having all of your eggs in one basket for your spouse to be generating an income, the only income, may give you almost a feeling of anxiety. Like, well, what if something happens to him? What if, he gets hurt and we're not able to do that? So maybe that's where this question is coming from too, is almost a place of fear and anxiousness and worrying about if something happens to him, you don't have another option. So, and they say multiple streams of revenue coming in is absolutely what you should be doing. You should never be focusing on just one stream of revenue coming in. So, like I said, I would encourage you, if you're feeling that pull to still have something else, then follow that. By all means, follow that, because that's only going to benefit you and your family. I would just encourage you to figure out a way to not let it impact your current family dynamic if you're happy with that and the way you're living your life right now. But you'll have to pivot a little bit. There will be some changes. So, like I said earlier with the other question, you will have to say no to some things if you are saying yes to try and make a little bit of money. And if you're, maybe you're doing it in the evenings, maybe you do it at night when the kids are in bed. And that just means you're going to have to say no to nighttime TV, like I gave in the other example. So I hope that helps. It did, you asked how long, this mama asked specifically how long it took me. And, we just had talked about it so much ahead of time that by the time we had started this role, me moving into that role, we just knew that we were now going to be a single income family. And we had a lot of, late night conversations on, I don't want this to feel like, I'm not worthy or you're in charge of all of our finances or whatever. It's still something we absolutely communicate about together. So I hope that helped. I'm going to try and answer these other two questions. I just had to pull it up on my phone. Okay. So the next question says, how do you get out of sticky conversations you don't want to have? For example, different religious conversations or uncomfortable personal conversations with family. And my first question to this question is, why do you want to get out of the conversation? I think you need to ask yourself that too. Are you just wanting to avoid it because you don't want to address it because it makes you uncomfortable? Or are you worried that you're going to offend somebody with having a sticky or tricky conversation? I think you need to ask yourself, why do you want to get out of it? Or if you know you need to have it, how do you make it so it's less uncomfortable? And a lot of the times what I really suggest on these before I, kind of give all of my input on this is I really think that this is the perfect time for a brain dump. And I've talked about this in a previous episode. I have an entire episode titled Brain Dump that you guys can go back to and review. But by getting all of this out on paper and writing it out, it better prepares you for, why do you feel like you need to have this conversation? What emotions are coming up behind this conversation? What are you hoping to gain from this conversation? And I feel like in these conversations, what you really have to do is speak your truth in an incredibly respectful way. So, like the religious component one, for example, that is really tough. That is really tough when you have somebody who feels very strongly, that has a very strong religious belief, and they continually talk about that with you, whether that's talking about scripture and that's maybe not your thing, or they have a different religious belief than you do. That's tough. And in this community and in my group of people, what I believe is to each their own. To each their own. You believe what you believe, and I'll believe what I want to believe. And whether you have a name on that belief, whether you don't have a name on that belief, whether it's part of a religious affiliation, to each their own. I'm not going to ever tell anybody they are right or they are wrong. I just respect what people believe and move on. That's just me personally. So with that being said, I'm pretty open about my beliefs, and I've kind of got that out there with this podcast. And I talk pretty openly with people about it, as even new friends. This is just my take, because I never want to be judged because of how I believe something or what I believe. And I don't ever want to judge anybody else either. And there's an interesting dynamic as stay-at-home moms. Okay. And I'm just going to have this kind of tricky conversation on the podcast, and take it or leave it, however you want to think about it. But a lot of the times, a stay-at-home mom and the idea of a stay-at-home mom is really wrapped up into a religious component. There is this idea that there is a specific religious belief that you must have if you're a stay-at-home mom. And if you're homeschooling, add that in. And if you're, gardening and trying to do some homesteading, there's kind of this perception or this idea that you are a certain way, or that you believe a certain way, and that your faith is a certain faith. And I think that that's really silly. I just think that is so judgmental for us to be wrapped up into this specific box, because there's all kinds of there's all kinds of stay-at-home moms. There's religious stay-at-home moms, there's spiritual stay-at-home moms, there's moms that are atheists. Like there's all types of people in this world, and we need to celebrate all of those different beliefs. And so like specifically for the religious conversations, it is hard and it is uncomfortable, but I think that if somebody's sharing their religious beliefs with you or their spiritual beliefs with you, then you should be able to have that kind of a conversation and speaking your truth as well, even if it is different from theirs. And if there's any problems with that, if there's any judgment that comes with that, then that's maybe not the space that you should be in. And maybe that's not the person that you should be around, because it should be all inclusive. Okay. It should be an all inclusive friendship. And I've had in the past scenarios where I don't have the same religious belief as somebody else, and there has been conflict, which is very frustrating for me because I don't feel the same about that person. So it's very hurtful and it feels very judgmental when that happens to me. So I want to be friends with anybody, no matter what their religious background is. Okay. I just think that I'm so interested in everybody's beliefs, and I'm going to ask some questions probably about it. And I want to get to know more about it and why people believe that way. But that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to become that religion or become that specific faith. It just means that I'm interested in it because I care about you. And, on the flip side of that, I have very good friends that have a specific religion, and I never once feel pressured and I never once feel judged. And the topic of spirituality and faith has come up, and it is welcomed and it is open, and it is understood that that is what I believe. And it is understood that that is what she believes. And I celebrate that. I think that is like one of the most incredible conversations, beautiful conversations you can have, but it is a conversation that I think is important. Now, I feel confident having that conversation because I know where I'm at in life with that. And I know honestly where I'm at in life is I'm a little confused, and that's okay to admit I'm a little confused. I'm not sure exactly where I am. Here I am with my spirituality, definitely not with a specific religion, but this is what we believe in. This is what we do. And that's okay. It's okay to say, I'm confused and I'm not sure where I am, but I love where you're at. So I'm very confident in speaking my truth. And maybe that's where having these sticky conversations or these, uncomfortable conversations gets a little bit easier, is when you get really honest with yourself with, this is my truth. I am who I am. And this is what I believe. And that's okay. And if this other person doesn't feel like that's okay, it's truly 100% their problem, not mine, because I have done nothing to offend them. I've done nothing to harm them, hurt them, anything negative like that. All I'm doing is speaking my truth in what I believe. And as long as you're not saying like, well, this way is wrong or that way is wrong, or, what you believe is wrong, but what I believe is right. But you've spoken your truth and just saying, this is what I believe, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. And if it gets uncomfortable or they feel like they can't, you're feeling like they can't respect that, then that has nothing to do with you. That has everything to do with that other person. And it's the same, the other example was like, uncomfortable conversations or personal conversations with family. You need to ask yourself, why are you having this conversation? Do you need to bring it up? Do you not need to bring it up? There's no reason to be passive about it if it is a topic or if it is something you need to talk about. But writing it down first is a great tool. Writing it down and getting all of your thoughts and emotions on paper first. So then when you go to have this conversation, your emotions have already been processed on paper, and then you're less emotional on the outside when it comes to having the actual conversation with the family member or with the friend or said person. So I hope that answered your question. I'm happy to dive into it a little bit more if you would like. So just feel free to send me a message. And then this last question that I have, wow, I actually got through all of them, you guys. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much, everybody, by the way, for sending these questions in. I love answering these questions based on my personal experience and what I've learned up till this point. So the last question is, how do you make space in your head for interruptions to your me time? I set time specifically in my day to have quiet alone time so I can make it through overstimulated situations. Sometimes this gets interrupted by husband / kids getting up early, etc. So how do you not get snappy? And I love this question, and it is really tricky. So for me, a lot of the times it just feels like finding my gratitude and understanding that I had this moment. Okay. It may not have been the full hour and a half that I was hoping for. I do 100% understand that feeling of like, okay, I've sat down, I've got my cozy coffee, I'm getting ready to do my reading with my fireplace on, and I am so excited to do that. And then I hear a baby cry, or I hear a toddler wake up, or somebody asks for a glass of water. And I feel this, oh, here we go. Is this how my day is going to start? Is this really how my day is going to start? I'm not going to get this moment. But what I have to remind myself is that I'm grateful for this time. I'm grateful for the moment that I had before they woke up. And from there, I just try and do something during the day that maybe gets me a little bit more extra time. And the other thing is like, if you've had these moments throughout the week, like these positive moments, you've been consistently waking up for that quiet time in the morning, then maybe you'll understand like, okay, no, I had this yesterday and it was okay, or I can get this again tomorrow and it's okay. I feel like that does slowly pour into your bucket over time. So when you have a random Tuesday and the kids wake up early, you're like, nah, the other 6 days I had some time. Now, the husband side is really tricky because Brad and I learned right off the bat when we were both waking up early at the same time. And we have to kind of remind ourselves of this on and off, that we are both not okay having a conversation until we've done all of our things. We've checked all of our boxes to wake up in the morning and get our minds right to make space for each other. And I don't think there's anything wrong with setting that boundary. And I don't think there's anything wrong with saying, and even like interrupting them and saying, hey, I really see that you want to talk to me about this right now. And I genuinely want to have this conversation. Can we make time to do this after the kids are in bed later tonight? Or can I call you today? Or can you call me on your lunch break and let's have this conversation again? I really want to chat with you about it, but I just really need this time. I really need this moment to get ready for my day because I don't want to be overstimulated before the kids are even up, before I've even had a chance to finish my cup of coffee, and it doesn't have to be worded exactly like I worded it just now, but I don't think there's anything wrong with saying, I'm not quite awake yet. I'm not quite ready to have this conversation, or I'm a much better person for this entire family if I could just have a little bit of time. But let's schedule a time, like I said, on your lunch break or in the evening after the kids are in bed to finish this, because I know that this is important to you. Brad and I have had these conversations before, and obviously in the moment, I haven't perfectly articulated it in that way like I'm doing on the podcast. So just do your best to make it positive instead of like attacking, like, dude, I just sat down, I poured a freaking cup of coffee, like, leave me alone. Don't go about it in that way. Just have an honest conversation about it. So it does become, again, win-win. How can I win and how can you win? How can we address this so we're not like compromising and giving up this time that we're not really like, I'm not really ready to give this up right now. So come up with a win-win solution, come up with an option in that way. And if your husband still wants to talk and you're willing to do that, I mean, I guess that's a decision that you can make. But if it does make you start to feel like a little bit resentful because I really wanted that time, then interrupt, say stop, or maybe the next day or that night you say, I had a conversation with you today before I had my coffee, and then it didn't set me up for success in my day. So the next time this happens, could we just set a time, schedule a time in the evenings or set some time aside so we can have this conversation, but it's not cutting into this time that I have in the morning. I think just expressing and explaining how important that is for you, is really, really important to share with your spouse, to share with your husband. And, going back to the kids one, I just want to reiterate, and I just want to say this again, that it is really, really tough when your time that you've set aside and scheduled, especially early in the morning, gets interrupted by kids on a random day that they're going to decide to wake up early, extra early. And, I think in that moment, it's also okay to create a boundary around your kids' wake up time. This is just what I do. And I know some people would disagree with it, but my kids are not allowed in our household. They're not allowed to come up really early. If they wake up early, the best thing that they can do for themselves is to actually stay in their bed until it's really time to wake up. And then they have time in their rooms, reading their stories, making their beds, and getting dressed before they're allowed to come upstairs. So that's a boundary that we've set up in the house. It's non-negotiable. That is something that we are now pivoting and working on with Lily since she is not in a crib. So there have been times when she wakes up and it interrupts my me time, which is a new thing for me in the last couple of years, because I've had a little bit of time with her being in a crib and the kids being a little bit, at 5 and 7, they know now what the rules are. They know what the expectation is for the morning. And so now I'm having to gently and kindly walk Lily back down to her room and let her know it's not time to wake up yet, especially if it's 6 o'clock in the morning for her. That is too early for her to be up. I know her and I know that's too early for her. So, but it throws my morning off. So I have to regroup and I have to pivot and I consciously have to think. I had my half hour of yoga. I had my half hour of my workout. I've had, this is why I got up at 5:30 this morning, so I could at least have a little bit of time. Even that little bit of time helps me. The other thing that I do if they wake up before me is I take a shower after breakfast and I don't let anybody in the bathroom. You could put a show on or something, let them have a little bit of time. You take a quick shower, have a little bit of uninterrupted time doing that, and then try moving forward. But, that's action, that's an action step. But what we're really talking about here is a mindset shift, right? Is not feeling resentful, not feeling overwhelmed throughout the rest of the day because your quality, quiet, alone time was interrupted. And then, come 1 o'clock, you're like, now I'm grumpy because you all interrupted my morning time and I haven't had any time to myself. And that is really tough. That is really tough. I shared in a live video the other day that I was feeling super overwhelmed just with life and kids and my role. And that happens. And I want you to know that is normal to feel that on occasion. And there's things that you can do throughout the day to help with those feelings of overwhelm. There's steps that you can take throughout the day to help with that, all of a sudden, now I'm feeling really overstimulated. Now I'm feeling really overwhelmed, but it is really tough. And there are going to be days that you feel like that. Now it does become like, I want to say almost a problem or an issue that you need to address. If this is constantly happening, these feelings of overwhelm are constantly happening and being overstimulated. So you need to maybe put in a daily practice of meditation or taking a step back for quiet time, putting the kids down for a nap, putting the kids down for quiet time, even so you can be less stimulated. And that doesn't mean you put them down for quiet time and then scroll through your phone, because that's again stimulation. That's putting the kids down for quiet time and you sipping on a cup of coffee, getting caught up on your water, reading your book, doing a meditation, maybe a meditation in your ear. Maybe you do some of your Bible studies. If some of you mamas out there, if that gets you back to your place, maybe you do some of your prayers at that time. There's definitely steps that you can take to step away if this is something that is occurring and reoccurring frequently. So I hope that helps you on that. Making space in your head specifically for it, though, it takes some intentionality. And I know that's like such a vague answer. And I'm sorry, that is so vague. I'm going to try and unpack that a little bit more, but it takes a conscious shift in understanding it's okay. I have tomorrow. I can do this today, or I'm going to take a shower independently on my own today. It takes feeling moments of gratitude. And maybe if they do wake up, you also sometimes just have to say, Mom needs 5 minutes before I get you your breakfast. When the kids come upstairs, I usually try and have breakfast already going, but if they wake up early, I'm not going to have breakfast ready. And that's okay. I do not have to be a servant to my children. And I tell them that Mommy needs 5 minutes. Give me 5 minutes to finish this cup of coffee. And we're going to go from there. Here's a story. I would love it if you sat down and played with these blocks quietly, or here's a quiet story for you to read on your own. I mean, the kids have come upstairs first thing in the morning sometimes. And, maybe I've had a little bit of a late morning, or things have just been off and I haven't quite finished that last little bit of my coffee. Mom, read me a story. Mom, will you do this? And I'm like, sorry guys, let me finish my coffee. I'm going to do this one thing for myself and get this completed. And then I'm happy to get you breakfast. You can read stories with your sisters. Here's some blocks you can play with or something. And, we'll do a story after breakfast time. I'd be happy to read you a story after breakfast or before we start school, or maybe we'll save that for lunchtime or something, give them something to look forward to. But it's really okay for you to set a boundary for your kids and say, I'm actually not going to do that for you right now because I'm going to do X. And then as soon as I'm done with X, we can move on to the next activity. We can move on to the next thing, or I'll get you your glass of milk. So there's nothing at all wrong with setting that boundary as well. But there will be times that it's challenging, and there will be times when it's overwhelming. And there are times where you almost do start to feel like resentful, and that's okay. But just acknowledge that, recognize it, understand why you feel that way, and then try and move forward in taking an action step, as well as like just shifting your mind once you bring awareness to it. Like, this is why I'm feeling this way, but it's not okay. And I'm going to do something about it. I'm going to do my meditation. I'm going to take my shower by myself, lock the door, and work on it the best you can. But sweet mama, we have bad days. Okay. I had a day of overwhelm, which I posted in my live, and it was tough. It was tough. And I tried everything I could to kind of get beyond that. And then that night I did nothing. I did the least amount possible, and I went to bed early, and it was awesome. And the next day was so much better. That overwhelm was gone. I felt so much better. So it happens. Okay. Tough days happen. It's when it keeps reoccurring that then like we really need to take some massive action steps to fix that. So there's all the questions. Oh my gosh, you guys, these were awesome. Thank you so much for sending these in. You don't have to wait for me to do a Q&A post in my Instagram. If you have additional questions, please send them in at any time. And then I can just address them as I'm doing other podcasts, or I know that this is a topic that you guys are looking for, and I'm happy to address it, by bringing an expert on. I love these. It just helps me grow. It helps you guys grow. And your questions sometimes are different than what I think about. So if you have a question, these are things that other people are also curious about too. So thank you so much for all of you who sent them in. I hope that I addressed them in the way that you were hoping, or I guess I hope that I got out of your questions what you were really meaning to ask. And if not, please send me a message and I'd be happy to elaborate or hop on a Zoom call even. And I'm happy to do a mom chat and talk to you about it more in detail if you'd like. So as a quick reminder, the name of the podcast will be changing. I haven't announced the name yet. I will announce it as it gets closer, or maybe not even until it like officially changes. I haven't quite decided on that yet, but stay tuned for Monday's podcast episode. If you haven't listened to the previous ones regarding the four foundational elements of living a fulfilled life as a stay-at-home mom, please go back and listen to those. So far, we've covered home. So far, we've covered health. So this coming podcast episode is going to be on wealth, which I'm really excited about. And I'll probably dive more into the wealth question or the income question that I had today, because that absolutely ties into the entire topic and the entire conversation. So thank you so much for listening today, sweet mama. I look forward to talking to you all again very soon.